This was me when I first played through Hollow Knight in 2018. This is me now. I acquired a wife, child, and 40 pounds. Hi, I'm Tri, and yeah, I've been waiting on Silksong for a little over 7 years, and boy has a lot changed in that time. I wanted to take this video opportunity to talk about Silksong and why it may or may not stand on its own and feel like a true sequel or just the Hornet DLC it was intended to be. Granted, I know, the DLC was initially just going to be Hornet as a playable character in Hollow Knight, and evidently, as all this time has passed, that has changed, from DLC side character to Hornet's own game. But I feel like in the past few years, we've seen a lot of sequels that feel like 1.5s, or struggle to really bloom on their own and become an experience that rivals the first time playing the first entry in its respective series. I've got some examples. The biggest one I see, and maybe it's because I'm a Zelda fan, is Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of people argue that it's basically just a Breath of the Wild 1.5, and while I may not agree with that, I can see where they're coming from. We're in a very similar map, with the same art style, same way of progressing or viewing the story, and systems that started with Breath of the Wild. I always hear people say, I wish I could just replay Breath of the Wild for the first time. And I don't think I've ever heard the same sentiments being said for Tears of the Kingdom, a game that I also put hundreds of hours into and adored. Some other recent releases I thought of were Spider-Man 2 compared to Spider-Man 1, God of War Ragnarok compared to God of War 2018, and Final Fantasy Rebirth to Remake. That's not to say the sequels were worse. In fact, most of these sequels probably added quite a bit to improve upon that original experience, but I find that they don't pack quite the same punch. Games that do really go above and beyond for sequels, well, I think of Portal 2 compared to Portal, Red Dead Redemption 2 compared to its predecessor, and Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 1. These games really feel like they stand on their own and are in some cases just better experiences than what comes before it. I think part of Silksong's expectations also just come from how long it's taken them to make the game. Jason Schreier wrote a fantastic article that stemmed from an interview he did with Team Cherry, grabbing all those juicy little development secrets we've been waiting on for years. And what did we learn? That there were no hiccups, no game-breaking bugs that halted development, and not even COVID-19 really getting in the way of Silksong's progression. In fact, it was quite the contrary. Team Cherry was in development heaven. They had their own little system for making the game, adding areas, characters, environments, and it just worked for them. William Pellin mentioned how he could have kept going. He worked on this game for 7+ years and was in such a groove that he didn't care to stop. And that is the best case scenario for this game. To know that there was no corporate red tape or waiting that had to be done for certain areas or features, no asking a product manager for permission or waiting on meetings to continue to progress the game is just astounding. They just took all this time to make the game that they wanted to make. Now what makes Silksong special? Why are the chances of this game being able to set itself apart from Hollow Knight more likely than less likely? I'm getting into a bit of conjecture here, but I think Hollow Knight is one of the best Metroidvanias. Point blank, period. More so than Castlevania, more so than Metroid. It's been one of the best to do it, I think, ever. Games have been coming out after Hollow Knight that try to replicate what it does well, and it just never hits quite the same. I'm someone who never really replays games, but Hollow Knight is a game I came back to multiple times. There was just an itch that only the Knight could scratch. With that being said, I don't see how Silksong, aka at its worst, more Hollow Knight, could be a bad thing. Will this mean it stands on its own? Not necessarily, but again, that's Silksong at its worst. One of the best Metroidvanias, if it's like Hollow Knight, which I don't see why it wouldn't be. A lot of other YouTubers and games media got their hands on the game, and I feel like a lot of them going into it were worried that Silksong would just feel like Hollow Knight. So many said within seconds or minutes into playing, those fears vanished. It's not just Hollow Knight, but instead your Hornet. It's something else entirely. Hornet as a character feels very different to play. If you thought you were godlike at Hollow Knight and had no problem clearing Pantheon 5, well, you still have your work cut out for you. Because Team Cherry knows how dedicated their fanbase is, and had the time to expound upon ideas they probably only dreamed of implementing in Hollow Knight. Just off the top of my head, I've noticed expansive side quests, more towns, escape sequences, vibrant visuals, a multitude of tools at Hornet's disposal, deeper movement, freaking slopes, and more just based on the tiny little trailers and gameplay snippets they've been willing to show us. If you know Team Cherry, you know that they love secrets. They want us to experience their game as fresh as they can give it to us. If you're games media, you don't get special treatment either. They announced that everyone will be able to play this game at the exact same time for only $20. They don't need the money, and they could have probably charged $40+ if they really felt like it, and I'm positive it still would have been worth it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because of the Silksong hype and discourse over the past 7 or so years, a lot of people have started to hop on the hype train, and many of them haven't played Hollow Knight. I fear for these people. Hollow Knight can be a pretty brutal game, and I know so many people that quit because they weren't able to push past certain sections, and I get it. That used to be me. I got stuck on Soul Master and couldn't beat him. I came back to the game in 2020 and then beat the whole thing and was so glad I did. I can just see the Silksong actually sucks clickbait YouTube titles rolling in, and I know it's going to be someone whose expectations didn't match their experience, and that's unfortunate. Part of why I made this video was to see where my head was at before its release, to kind of set my own expectations, which are very high. I feel like for how high the bar was set from Hollow Knight, it makes sense. If you want to follow me in my Silksong journey, I plan on uploading future videos about my experience with it and especially its design, something I like to do on my channel. Huge thanks to my patrons who support me here on YouTube and on Patreon. You guys are helping me get one step closer to my dream of doing YouTube full time. Links to my Patreon, YouTube memberships, merch store, and Discord server are all in the description down below. If you want to see what my experience with Hollow Knight was like, click the video that'll pop up. Thanks for watching, I appreciate you being here, and as always,
thank you for all your support!